Whether you believe the former LDS prophet, Joseph Smith, was a prophet or not, it is hard to deny the fulfillment of his prophetic words that the government of the United States would become corrupt and the Constitution will hang by a thread. He also stated that the Latter-day Saint elders would step forward and save it. Ezra Taft Benson, also a former prophet of the LDS Church, said, "I have faith that the Constitution will be saved as prophesied by Joseph Smith, but it will not be saved in Washington. It will be saved by the citizens of this nation who love and cherish freedom. It will be saved by enlightened members of this church, men and women who will subscribe to and abide by the principles of the Constitution." These words and others from men I admire and believe have led me to try to motivate the LDS elders and the other citizens of Idaho who love and cherish freedom. I've been speaking all over Idaho to LDS and non-LDS people for 2.5 years that it is time we rise up and defend the Constitution, which I believe was given to us by men who are inspired of God. Consistent with Ezra Taft Benson's thoughts that the Constitution would not be saved in Washington, I have been proclaiming the way to save the Constitution is by using the power of our 10th Amendment states' rights. However, until we have the leadership in Idaho that is willing to make a 10th Amendment stand, the words are no more than hollow rhetoric. In order to motivate my fellow LDS elders, I have invited many to attend meetings to discuss Joseph's prophecies and how we can help save the Constitution. Some people, LDS and non-LDS, think it is inappropriate for me to hold such meetings. I think that is ridiculous. I have and will hold meetings with all kinds of groups in Idaho. I will speak to each group on matters that are of interest to and directly affect them individually. As such, it would only be appropriate for me to address Joseph Smith's prophecies with people who believe he was a prophet. Lastly, for those who think mixing religion and government is inappropriate, I would like to say, America would not exist if it wasn't for the divine hand of providence in not only intervening to win the Revolutionary War, okay, you're going to have to edit that. Lastly, for those who think mixing religion and government is inappropriate, I'd like to say, America would not exist if it wasn't for the divine hand of providence in not only intervening to win the Revolutionary War, but in writing the inspired words of the Constitution. To think that we can save the Constitution without God's help when the government of the United States has become corrupt is absurdity. We are in America's second Revolutionary War to save our freedom, which we paid for with blood. We need God's help, and I'm not ashamed to ask for it.
Can you give us the rundown of, how did it get out into the public that you were holding these particular meetings?
I prepared some invitations and I handed them out to good friends of mine that are LDS, just intending to invite them to a meeting to discuss the prophecy and how we might help save the Constitution. One of those invitations ended up in the hands of somebody that was offended. They put it on Facebook, and the next thing I knew, it was all over Idaho.
Do you feel, though, by sitting there and excluding all other groups other than members of the LDS Church, that you're kind of excluding, you're alienating everyone else out there?
To be right honest with you, the reason I invited only LDS elders to this particular forum is I didn't think anybody else would want to come, especially people that are not LDS. I wanted to talk about this prophecy that the Constitution would hang by a thread, and quite frankly, I didn't expect non-LDS people would want to listen.
Do you feel like by holding these meetings this will help or hinder you in your political goals? Well, obviously, I felt like it would help, and I still believe it will. Most people know that I'm not afraid to take a stand. I've taken stands on many issues that are controversial. That is the way I would act as the governor of Idaho. I do not poll people. I do not read the newspaper to formulate my opinions. I talk about things that I believe in, and this is one thing I dearly believe in. I believe that the government is corrupt. I believe the Constitution is hanging by a thread. I believe Joseph's prophecy
is at least fulfilled to that extent. And I also believe that members of my church will, along with other good citizens of the state of Idaho and across America, will step forward and save it. I am simply trying to rally the people to this cause.
You said members of all faiths then?
I like what President Benson said. In fact, let me read it again so I don't misquote it. President Benson summed up the way I believe. He said, quote, "I have faith that the Constitution will be saved as prophesied by Joseph Smith, but it will not be saved in Washington. It will be saved by the citizens of this nation who love and cherish freedom. It will be saved by enlightened members of this church, men and women who will subscribe to and abide by the principles of the Constitution." In that statement, in which I totally agree, I believe that LDS and non-LDS people will step forward, those who love and cherish freedom, and members of the LDS Church who are enlightened and understand and subscribe to the principles of the Constitution.
Because the Doctrine and Covenants write that it was people who are wise, essentially. It doesn't go into really
right. Yes.
It says good and wise people.
I do not believe this responsibility lies solely on the shoulders of the LDS elders. But I do believe the LDS elders will play a significant role in it. And I believe I'm one of those elders. And it is time that we stand up and defend the United States Constitution. And I'm tired of people telling me that I can't bring God and the Constitution into my campaign speeches. I absolutely disagree with that. I appreciate the LDS Church's standpoint that they will remain politically neutral. But I do not represent the LDS Church. I represent myself, and I am running as an LDS person to be the governor of Idaho. Therefore, I think it's totally appropriate to speak about whatever I want to speak about. And God and the Constitution are very dear to my heart, and I will continue to speak about them.
Now that it's out in the public, is it open to anybody who wants to, or are you still holding true to the fact that you only want LDS elders at those meetings in January?
I think it's still appropriate just to invite LDS elders to meetings where I discuss the prophecy. Mm-hmm. If there are other people that are interested in the subject, I'm more than happy to come speak to them as well. But at these particular events that I've scheduled, there are plenty of LDS elders to fill the room and to talk about specifically about the prophecy. So I hope that there are non-LDS people that are interested in the prophecy. And for that reason, I'm glad that this has gone public, which was not my intention. But it's okay for me to discuss this now. I think it's important that we all look at this and we all join hands. Anybody that believes in God and has enough faith that He can help us, show us the way to save the Constitution, I think it's good for that reason.
So do you think that people will feel like they're being excluded if they're not LDS and can't come to these meetings?
No, because I'm willing to talk to them in another forum. It's not like I'm going around the state of Idaho and just speaking to LDS people. In fact, these are the first meetings of this nature that I've had. Most of my meetings have been speaking to people of all faiths, and probably more non-LDS than LDS, because I've been up north a lot, and the church isn't as strong up there. This is just a forum in eastern Idaho where the LDS church is strong, to talk to people about something that's very near and dear to my heart.